Alrighty, it has been quite a minute since the last episode of Game Chat. For no particular reason. Again, I just have no schedule for this video series. It's just stuff in gaming that I'm interested in. I'll talk about it when I want to talk about it. So, since it's been a while, some of the stuff I'm going to mention here is a little bit old, not super old, but it's probably stuff people have already been talking about on either on YouTube or on Twitter and stuff. But yeah, anyhow, we're gonna kick it off with some Cyberpunk news. So Cyberpunk finally returned to the PlayStation Store after the catastrophic release of it on pretty much all platforms. We all know how that went over at Sony, where they just completely removed it from the PlayStation Store. But last month on June 21st, it finally returned to the PlayStation Store, and immediately afterwards, Sony or PlayStation, whoever, put out a statement saying, you can play this on PS4, but we don't recommend it. You can play it on PS5 and PS4 Pro, and that's probably the preferred way to do it. But even despite all of that, Cyberpunk 2077 still topped the PlayStation Store sales for June of 2021. I mean, just shows how much hype this game really had behind it, and even after all the negative feedback after the release, people were still clamoring for it, still waiting for it, and just had to play it no matter what. And as someone who generally did enjoy Cyberpunk, despite all of its shortcomings, I'm happy to see it finally make its way to PlayStation, especially considering there were so many people on PlayStation that wanted to play the game and couldn't until now, or until a few weeks ago. And it does seem like the team over at CD Projekt Red is committed to fixing Cyberpunk to the best of their ability and creating a better product at the end day. So we'll see if they could pull off the No Man's Sky rebirth type of thing. But yeah, if you're waiting on Cyberpunk and you're only on PS4, there you go. You can play it now. Now, recently on my channel, I did a Moses Monocle, which is my review series of a game called Control. If you want to know more about the game specifically, you go ahead and watch that video. But basically, Control was one of the best critically acclaimed games of, I believe, 2018. It's been a while since the game came out, but apparently Remedy, which is the developer of Control, is working on a multiplayer game that's set in the Control universe, as well as just a straight up sequel to Control. Now, we don't know too much about either of these games. Obviously, the sequel to Control is probably going to play very similar to Control, but as far as the multiplayer game, the devs have said it's not necessarily within the same narrative or any sort of continuation of the Control games. It's just set in the same universe. But other than that, we really don't know much about it. It showed off this one little teaser image of what the multiplayer game is going to be, which really doesn't show anything. They just kind of look like Rainbow Six type soldiers to me. But I love Control. I'm looking forward to the sequel, and I'll at least be keeping my eye out on this Control multiplayer game because Remedy has proven in Control that they really know how to do that third-person action pretty much better than anybody else. Now, I believe about a week or two ago, Steam Next Fest took place pretty much right after E3, and there was a absolute ton of indie games showed off there that are worth giving a look. Now, I could go into my own list here and talk about them, but there was actually so many. So I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to recommend a video from one of my favorite YouTubers, Skill Up. He actually put out a video, let me check exactly when. He put out a video about 2 weeks ago, which is titled 20 of the best indies to put on your radar, and there were all stuff that were showed off at Steam's Next Fest, and I'm looking forward to a ton of those games. So if you want to see stuff that I'm looking forward to, or just need some more games on your radar to look forward to, then I definitely recommend just checking out Steam's Next Fest yourself, or if you want just like a quick wrap up, go ahead and check up Skill Up's video and yeah, put some more games on your list. So weirdly enough, we actually kind of got two recent Switch type announcements. One being the super disappointing to some people Switch OLED or Switch OLED. I think people were mainly really disappointed because people were expecting like the Switch Pro that's gonna run things at like 4K when docked using like NVIDIA upscaling or DLSS. That's not what we got. Pretty much we just got the standard Switch we already have with an OLED panel, slightly bigger panel, I think it's 7 inches, and a refreshed kickstand, a bit of a refreshed design. I actually really like the look of the new dock, and apparently I saw an article you can actually just buy the dock standalone, which I'm definitely going to do so I can have one here in my room and in my living room. As far as the hardware outside of the screen, of course, it's exactly the same. It's not going to run games any smoother as far as we're aware. It's just the refresh on the screen, a better kickstand, I should say a usable kickstand, since the one that's on the Switch now is pretty much there for absolutely no reason. It's just a waste of space. And the dock actually has an Ethernet port in it now, so you don't have to buy an external Ethernet dongle to plug into the USB in the back of it. people are going to find any reason to be upset about this thing just because it's not the Switch Pro. Personally, I think it's actually kind of cool. And I think if you don't have a Switch, this is, pretty much Nintendo's way of saying, if you don't have one already, here you go. I don't really see that much of a reason for current Switch owners to upgrade, or maybe for people who only had Switch Lites and now they want to get the OLED version of the Switch so that they can actually hook it up to the TV. That makes a lot of sense to me. But in terms of like upgrading from the base Switch to that Switch, I mean, people are going to do it anyway. Pretty much it's just the new best version of the current Switch that you can get for new buyers. At least that's the way I'm seeing it. And oddly enough, a couple weeks after that disappointment to Nintendo fans, Steam comes out with pretty much their version of the Nintendo Switch called the Steam Deck. And obviously, just looking at it, you can tell it's very inspired by the Nintendo Switch, as being a handheld sort of console deal. But with it being Steam, you can play PC games on it, and surprisingly enough, it's pretty affordable with prices starting at $399. This device has a AMD APU containing a quad-core Zen CPU, which pretty much means it's got much better graphics capabilities than Nintendo Switch, or at least that's how it's seeming. And right now there are 3 different storage tiers. The 64GB unit, which starts at $399, which is not enough gigabytes, so I don't know who's buying that one. A 256GB storage, which is at $526, or the 512GB storage, which is at $649. So at the 500GB range, we're reaching like PS5 and Xbox, like next-gen console prices. So I'm not super sure about that one, but I could still see them selling a lot of the lower spec 64GB $400 model just because it's $400. But as you can see, just by looking at it, it has quite a bit more functionality than the Nintendo Switch. I'm going to keep comparing it to the Nintendo Switch, obviously, because that's kind of what it's competing with. So obviously it's got the joysticks up top, the D-pad, and the face buttons, but it also has 2 touchpads below the joysticks for, I guess, interface or mousing movements, as well as mappable buttons on the back of the device. The cool thing about the Steam Deck is it's a full-blown PC, it kind of seems. You can web browse and play any of the Steam titles, and you can like plug it in and dock it and hook it up to an external monitor or a TV, just like you can the Switch. And yeah, long story short, the Steam Deck is like a full-fledged Linux computer, meaning that technical users will be able to jump out to the regular Linux desktop to do just kind of like basic computer stuff, which is pretty cool. And when they release this, they put out a ton of information, so if you want to know more about it, I'll leave a link in the description to The Verge's article. It's just kind of covering this entire thing. But me personally, it's a cool product, but I'm not going to buy it. I already have a PC, so there's really no reason to. And I don't really know who this is marketing to. Like, is it trying to take shares away from Nintendo Switch fans, or is it trying to be a substitute for a full-blown like desktop? But it's set to release, I believe, December this year. So we'll see how that goes sales-wise. Hot off the heels of E3, PlayStation came out with their own big showcase, the PlayStation State of Play, and it was absolutely cheeks. They didn't show anything that I cared about other than pretty much 2 games. They even said, like, before the live stream went up, that the main focus was going to be indie games, and Deathloop, which is the PlayStation exclusive Bethesda game that they showed off, I believe last year at E3. And Deathloop isn't a game that I'm super excited about. It does look cool, I will admit. Like, it's gonna look like a cool, fun game, but for me personally, I wasn't super excited about that. But the one game I have been excited about that PlayStation has showed off a few times, and I even mentioned on the last episode of Game Chat, is Sifu, the developers of Absolver. They had another trailer here at the State of Play, which showed off more of the like aging mechanics in the game. And then at the very end of the trailer, they showed that it got delayed. It was supposed to release this year, now it's going to release early next year. So with Sifu being one of the main games I've really been looking forward to, I was a little bit disappointed to see that delay, but obviously want to give the developers as much time as we need. We've seen in the past how things go when developers are rushed. Looking at you, CD Projekt Red. I'm still very much looking forward to Sifu. It looks awesome. And yeah, there's a whole other like hour worth of PlayStation State of Play that no one cared about. So moving on. Keeping with the subject of PlayStation, however, Ghost of Fushima, the PlayStation exclusive from Sucker Punch, which I absolutely loved, is getting a director's cut. And of course, Right when this trailer and this announcement drops, my PS4 shits the bed at the blue light of death. Fushima Directors Cut is coming out, and I couldn't be any more happy about it. It's got a slew of new content, a whole new area to explore, Iki Island, which is obviously going to harbor a whole new area to play a game, as well as new story bits. Along with this Director's Cut, there's a PS5 upgrade, 4K resolution, 60 FPS, all that stuff. But this was under a bit of controversy because it's actually behind a paywall, whereas many games, if you just have the PS5 and you have PS4 version, you can upgrade it for free. That's not the case here. If you have the Director's Cut for PS4, you'll be able to upgrade to the PS5 version for $10, or you can upgrade directly from the standard Ghost of Tsushima PS4 version to the Director's Cut PS5 version for an additional $30, which is kind of crazy to me. I don't see why they're locking the graphical upgrades behind a paywall when the paywall already exists, and having to buy a PS5, like, hello? Now, in terms of the extra content, it's pretty much just DLC, so paid DLC is all over the place. That's not really surprising to me, but I think where the controversy comes is because they're just calling this a director's cut of the game and not just like an expansion. So I think the marketing is kind of weird. I think if they just would have said, here's the Iki Island expansion for Ghost of Tsushima, it's $10 or $20, whatever it is. But to hide the graphical leap and, you know, PS5 upgrades, the higher frame rates, higher resolution behind a $30 paywall, or potentially a $30 paywall, is kind of crazy to me. And a lot of people were upset about that. I don't even have a PS5, and it rubbed me the wrong way. So it's still probably going to be phenomenal content because the game is amazing, but it is a bit of a weird decision. I don't know if it was on Sony's part of the decision or on the developers' sucker punch, but it is what it is. I'm still excited to see what the Director's Cut has to hold. Hopefully I can get my hands on a PS5 soon so that I can actually play it since my PS4 exploded. And to finish this episode off, the biggest news and the most exciting news ever. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl, baby. If you saw my last video, you know I'm super excited about this, but a little bit more information has actually come out about this game that I didn't mention in that video. Before I get into that, if you don't know what the game is, it's pretty much Nickelodeon's answer to Smash Bros. Taking a bunch of beloved Nickelodeon characters and cartoons and slapping them into a Smash-type 2D platform fighter. Yeah, it's been all over Twitter, and it's made by the developers of Slap City, which, if you don't know what Slap City is, it is a very well-received Smash-type fighter. Unfortunately failed just due to it not having like recognizable characters, but for the people who did play it, at least gameplay wise, it was really, really good. So originally when I saw this, like a lot of people, I thought maybe this is probably just going to be another cash grab from Nickelodeon, just like the Nickelodeon Racers Mario Kart clone or whatever. But no, this has some reputable developers behind it, and they've already said that it's going to have rollback netcode, which is insane to think that the Nickelodeon Smash game is going to have rollback netcode when normal Smash Bros. Has the worst online ever. And a bit of new news on the game, the box art for it has been leaked, and you can see some silhouettes of some characters that weren't showed off in that initial trailer. So I'm going to put up an image right now of pretty much what people believe is the quote-unquote final roster, or maybe just current roster, that the game is going to have at its release. So we've already seen a number of these characters, but some new ones that people are very excited for, myself included, are Aang and Korra. We got Ren and Stimpy, which Powder Toast Man showed up in Ren and Stimpy, I believe. So that's not super surprising, but we also got Cat Dog, Crumb. Don't know who Crumb is, I'm not gonna lie to you. This says Dora. I don't think Dora's making it. This is Dora, but anyhow, the big news for me from this is Avatar stuff. Aang and Korra, that's sick. That was the first thing I thought of when I was seeing stuff about this Smash Bros. Fighting game. Now, the way that we found out about this game having rollback netcode was through one of the devs on the Ludosity Discord, which Ludosity is the dev team behind Slap City and this game. He said that on supported platforms it would have rollback netcode, and he also confirmed that this game is going to have wave dashing, which is just even more evidence that this is not just going to be some cash grab throwaway game. This is going to have some real fighting game mechanics and skill to it that can be at play here. If I didn't have enough of a reason to look forward to this game and be hyped, I definitely do now. And yeah, man, it's my most anticipated release of the year, especially now that Sifu got delayed. Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl all the way, boy. Anyhow, that's all I had to talk about. That's some stuff I'm interested in that I wanted to bring to you guys' attention. Let me know what you guys are looking forward to in the future of gaming, or just in the future in general. Are you going to be picking up Nickelodeon All-Star Brawl or any of these games I talked about? What's your guys' opinion on the Steam version of the Switch or the Switch OLED? I actually do want to know that stuff. So yeah, leave a comment, like, subscribe, See you guys in the next one.